Catherine Hayes stood on her porch, watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in shades of orange and purple. Her weathered hands gripped a mug of tea as her eyes scanned the distant tree line out of habit. Even after 10 years of peaceful living, on this small farm, old instincts never quite faded. The cool evening breeze carried the scent of pine and freshly turned earth. Spring planting was almost done, and for once life felt normal. Catherine took a deep breath and allowed herself a small smile. John would be back from town soon with supplies, and they would have a quiet dinner together like any ordinary couple. But Catherine and John Hayes were anything but ordinary. Inside the farmhouse, hidden beneath loose floorboards in their bedroom, lay weapons, passports with different names, and emergency cash in various currencies. The Hayes family had secrets, deep ones. Catherine's radio crackled to life on the kitchen counter. It was the emergency channel she and John always kept open. "Cat." John's voice came through broken and urgent. "Something's following, not normal." Static swallowed his words. Catherine moved with sudden precision, the sleepy farmer vanishing in an instant. She placed her mug down without a sound and went to the gun cabinet, entering the combination with steady fingers. The shotgun came out first, followed by her old service pistol from a hidden compartment John thought she didn't know about. She tried the radio again. "John, what's your position? Over." Nothing but static answered. Catherine moved to the window and peered out at the long dirt drive leading to their property. No headlights yet. She checked her watch. John was 30 minutes late now. Not long. Enough for real concern in normal circumstances, but the broken radio call changed everything. The phone rang, making Catherine tense. She answered cautiously. "Mrs. Hayes?" Sheriff Bill Daniels' voice came through, unusually formal. "There's been an accident on Route 16. I think you should come down here." 20 minutes later, Catherine stood beside Sheriff Daniels next to John's overturned truck. Emergency vehicles lit the scene with flashing red and blue lights. "Looks like he swerved to avoid something and went off the road," Daniels explained, his face grim in the harsh light. "I'm sorry, Catherine. He didn't make it." Catherine nodded numbly, but her eyes were scanning the scene with professional assessment. The truck had rolled several times before hitting a tree, but what caught her attention were the skid marks. They didn't match a simple swerve. They showed erratic movement, like John had been dodging something moving. Multiple somethings. I have a moment alone?" she asked. Sheriff Daniels squeezed her shoulder. "Take all the time you need. I'll be over by my car." Once alone, Catherine moved quickly. She circled the truck, noting the unusual burn marks on the metal that didn't match any crash pattern she'd seen before. The driver's side door had been peeled open, not from rescue workers, but something else. The edges were melted, not cut. She found John still strapped in his seat, eyes open but empty. Catherine allowed herself 3 seconds of pure grief before leaning in closer. There was no blood, no visible injuries at all. But when she touched his hand, his skin felt wrong, almost crystallized. Something glinted in the grass nearby. Catherine picked it up carefully using a handkerchief. It was a small metal object no bigger than a coin, but made of a material she didn't recognize. It hummed faintly and emitted a dim blue light. This was no accident. "Find anything interesting?" Sheriff Daniels had approached silently, watching her with curious eyes. Catherine slipped the object into her pocket. "No, just saying goodbye." Later that night, after giving statements and enduring sympathetic platitudes from neighbors, Catherine locked herself in the bathroom and examined the strange object. It was like nothing on Earth. A perfect octagon with shifting patterns beneath its surface. When she brought it near water, the liquid rippled away as if repelled. Catherine sat on the edge of the bathtub, mind racing. She had spent enough years in government service to know when something was being covered up. The burn marks, John's strange radio call, this impossible object, they all pointed to one conclusion, but it was too fantastic to believe. She caught her reflection in the mirror. 10 years of farming had softened her once sharp features, added lines around her eyes, streaked her dark hair with gray. But beneath that mask of normalcy, Lisa Volkov, the woman once known as Baba Yaga, was awakening. 3 days later, after a small funeral, Catherine sat alone in her kitchen surrounded by casseroles from well-meaning neighbors. The sheriff's investigation had concluded quickly. Single vehicle accident, driver fatigue, case closed. But Catherine knew better. In the days following John's death, she had noticed strange lights in the sky at night. The farm animals were restless, and twice she'd found unusual footprints near the property line, 2 wide, with 3 pointed toes instead of 5. That night, Catherine couldn't sleep. A low humming sound pulled her from bed. She moved silently to the window and saw a faint blue glow coming from the barn. Without turning on any lights, she dressed quickly and retrieved her pistol from beneath the mattress. The farm was silent as she slipped out the back door and across the yard, staying in the shadows. The humming grew louder as she approached the barn. Something was moving inside. She could see shadows shifting under the door. Catherine eased. It opened just enough to peer through. What she saw froze her blood. 2 tall figures moved around John's old workbench. They were humanoid but wrong. Too thin, with elongated limbs and bulbous heads. They glowed faintly blue in the darkness, the same color as the object she'd found at the crash site. One held something that looked like a scanner over John's tools and personal items. They were searching for something. Catherine's training took over. She cataloged threats, exits, weapons. These beings, whatever they were, had likely killed John. And now they were here. One of the creatures turned suddenly, looking directly at the door. Its eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle, widened. It made a clicking sound to its companion. Catherine burst through the door, gun raised. "Don't move!" The creatures exchanged looks. Then one raised a hand-like appendage holding a device Catherine didn't recognize. She fired twice, hitting the creature square in the chest. Instead of blood, sparks flew, and it stumbled backward. The second creature pointed its own device. A beam of light shot out, missing Catherine by inches and melting a hole clean through the barn wall. Catherine rolled behind a tractor as more beams fired overhead. She heard clicking sounds, communication perhaps, as the creatures spread out. Her mind raced. These weren't humans. The realization should have terrified her, but instead a cold clarity washed over her. This was combat, and combat she understood. She fired again, emptying her magazine and forcing the creatures to take cover. Then she sprinted for the back of the barn, grabbing a can of gasoline stored for the tractor. The creatures advanced cautiously, searching for her among the farm equipment. Catherine unscrewed the gas cap, soaked a rag, and lit it with John's old Zippo. The makeshift Molotov cocktail sailed through the air, exploding at the feet of the nearest creature. Blue flames engulfed it, burning far hotter than normal gasoline should. The creature thrashed and emitted a high-pitched wail that hurt Catherine's ears. The second creature fired wildly in her direction before grabbing its burning companion. They moved with blinding speed toward the barn door. Catherine followed at a safe distance, watching from the shadows as the creatures fled across the Yao field toward the tree line. A light appeared among the trees, bright and pulsing. When it faded, the creatures were gone. Dawn found Catherine digging beneath the floorboards of her bedroom, retrieving the locked case she had hoped never to open again. Inside lay her past, weapons, documents, and a secure phone with only one number programmed into it. She stared at the phone for a long moment before pressing the call button. "This is Catherine Hayes," she said when a man answered. "I need to speak with Director Pierce immediately." A pause. "Tell him Baba Yaga is calling. We have a situation." Director Alan Pierce arrived at a small diner outside Billings the next afternoon. He wore plain clothes and carried himself like an ordinary businessman, but his eyes scanned the room with practiced efficiency. He spotted Catherine in a corner, booth her back to the wall watching both entrances. For a moment he didn't recognize her. The legendary operative he had known was now disguised as a weathered farm woman with calloused hands and sun-lined features. Only her eyes remained unchanged, sharp, assessing, dangerous. "You look well," he said, sliding into the booth. "Stop lying, Alan," Catherine pushed a cup of coffee toward him. We don't have time for pleasantries. Pierce sipped his coffee. 10 years of silence, and now this. Aliens, Lisa. Really? Catherine, she corrected. Lisa Volkov died in Siberia, and yes, aliens. I wouldn't have called otherwise. She slid a napkin across the table. Wrapped inside was the strange metal object from the crash site. Pierce examined it carefully, his skeptical expression slowly changing. This isn't possible, he whispered. Neither was surviving the Grozny operation, but here I am. Catherine leaned forward. John is dead. These things killed him, and they searched our property afterward. They're looking for something. Pierce pocketed the device. If what you're suggesting is true, you know me, Alan. Would I make this up? Pierce studied her face for a long moment. No, you wouldn't. He sighed heavily. What do you need? Access, resources, and the truth about what you know. Pierce smiled thinly. What makes you think we know anything? Catherine's expression hardened. Because I know how the government works. If alien devices are turning up in rural Montana, you've been tracking this for a while. 3 hours later, they entered a nondescript office building in downtown Billings. The sign on the door read, Department of Agricultural Research, but the security measures told a different story. Retinal scanners, armed guards disguised as office workers, and electromagnetic locks on interior doors. In a secure basement room, Pierce introduced Catherine to a small team. This is Frank Martinez, Field Operations. A muscular man in his 30s, nodded curtly. Olivia Grant, Linguistics and Analysis. A woman with short dark hair and intelligent eyes gave a small wave. And Steve Harper, Technical Specialist. A thin man with glasses looked up briefly from his computer before returning to his work. Team, this is Catherine Hayes. Some of you may know her by another name. Frank's eyes widened slightly. Baba Yaga? I thought you were dead, Catherine finished. That was the idea. Pierce clicked a remote, and screens around the room lit up with images and data. 2 years ago, we detected unusual radiation signatures in Earth's orbit. 6 months later, the first unexplained deaths began. High-level scientists, military personnel, specific government officials, all dying in apparent accidents. Catherine studied the images. Like John. Yes. Your husband's communications expertise from his military days put him on their list. We've identified 17 confirmed kills so far. Steve gestured to the device Catherine had found. This is their calling card, a quantum tracer. They use it to mark targets and track them. Who are they? Catherine asked. Olivia stepped forward. We call them Selverians. Based on intercepted communications, they're part of something called the Galactic HFY, a coalition of spacefaring species. They've been watching Earth for decades. Why kill us now? Pierce clicked to a new image, a space probe launching from Earth. This is Pioneer 11. 3 months ago, it entered what appears to be restricted space. The hegemony responded by sending assassins. Catherine processed this information. They're eliminating anyone who could help Earth defend itself. Precisely, Pierce confirmed. And they're extremely good at what they do. The Selverians are considered the perfect assassins, enhanced senses, advanced technology, and complete dedication to their mission. Catherine turned to face the team. So why am I here? You have resources, intelligence. We need someone who can hunt them back, Frank said simply. Someone legendary. Catherine shook her head. I'm a retired operative, not an alien hunter. You're Baba Yaga, Pierce said quietly. The woman who disappeared into Russian forests for 6 months and eliminated an entire terrorist cell one by one. The operative who made hardened killers afraid of shadows. That was a lifetime ago. And yet last night you fought off 2 alien assassins with a pistol and homemade incendiary, Pierce countered. Your instincts are still there. Before Catherine could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Steve's fingers flew across his keyboard. Perimeter breach. Multiple contacts approaching from the east entrance. Pierce grabbed a secure phone. This is Director Pierce. Lockdown Protocol Echo 7. Catherine was already moving, retrieving a handgun from Frank's offered tactical vest. How did they find us? The device, Olivia realized. You brought it here. It must have been transmitting. The lights cut out, replaced by dim emergency lighting. Catherine felt an old familiar feeling washing over her, the calm clarity of combat. Her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Harper, Grant, secure the data and prepare for evacuation, she ordered. Martinez with me, Director. Get to the panic room. Pierce raised an eyebrow at her sudden command, but nodded. Just like old times, Catherine and Frank positioned themselves near the main corridor, using office furniture as cover. The facility had gone silent except for distant metallic sounds, doors being forced open. So, Frank whispered, the stories about you are true? Catherine checked her weapon. Depends on the story. They say in Prague you eliminated a warlord's entire security detail using only a dinner knife. Catherine allowed herself a small smile. It was a dessert fork, actually. A blue light appeared at the end of the hallway, growing brighter. Catherine tensed, memories flooding back, not of her operations, but of the night in the barn. The ball, clicking sounds, the inhuman movements. Remember, she whispered to Frank. They have energy weapons. Don't stay exposed. Move or die. 3 Selverians rounded the corner, their elongated forms gliding more than walking. They carried devices, similar to what Catherine had seen before. She fired first, striking the lead alien in what appeared to be a shoulder joint. It staggered, blue fluid spraying from the wound. Frank opened fire on the others, forcing them to take cover. They can be hurt, Catherine called out. Center mass seems ineffective. Go for joints and head. The aliens returned fire, energy beams, cutting through the office furniture like paper. Catherine rolled to new cover, firing as she moved. Her bullet caught one alien in its triangular eye array, dropping it immediately. More alarms sounded as the building's fire suppression system activated, spraying water from ceiling sprinklers. The aliens made distressed clicking sounds as the water hit them, their skin seeming to sizzle on contact. They don't like water, Frank yelled over the noise. Catherine grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and charged forward, firing her remaining bullets to provide cover. When she reached the closest alien, she smashed the extinguisher valve and sprayed the creature directly. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The alien's skin bubbled and melted, its screams high-pitched enough to crack the glass in nearby doors. It collapsed, twitching. The last Selverian retreated, moving with incredible speed despite its injuries. Catherine started to pursue but stopped at the sound of gunfire from the direction of the data room. Olivia and Steve, she said, changing direction. They arrived to find Steve wounded, pressing his hand against a bleeding shoulder. Olivia was backing away from a new Selverian that had entered through a ventilation shaft. This one was different, larger, with markings on its face and body. Commander, it said in halting, accented English, find Baba Yaga. Catherine stepped forward, gun raised. Found her. The alien's 3 eyes focused on her with disturbing intensity. You. Not possible. Human female. Weak. Catherine smiled, the expression cold and dangerous. Big mistake. The alien commander lunged at Catherine with shocking speed. She barely dodged, feeling the air shift as clawed fingers missed her face by inches. The creature moved like nothing human, joints bending in impossible ways. Get them out, Catherine shouted to Frank, nodding toward the injured Steve and wide-eyed Olivia. Catherine grabbed a chair and swung it into the alien's midsection. The metal bent around its form, barely slowing it down. The commander grabbed her arm with incredible strength, lifting her off the ground. Human female, it clicked in its strange accent. Not special. Catherine reached for her boot with her free hand, pulling out a small blade. Not all of us need to be special. She plunged the knife into the junction between the alien's arm segments. Blue fluid sprayed as the commander dropped her with a screech. Catherine rolled away, retrieving her fallen gun. The alien pulled the knife from its arm and studied it with 3 blinking eyes. Primitive weapon. Works fine on you, Catherine countered, firing twice. The commander moved with blinding speed, dodging both shots. It produced a small silver sphere from its belt and threw it toward the doorway where Frank was helping Steve. "Grenade!" Catherine yelled, diving toward it. She kicked the sphere back toward the alien just as it began to pulse with light. Tautir. Explosion knocked Catherine backward into a wall. Her ears rang and her vision blurred. Through the smoke, she saw the commander staggering, one arm hanging useless at its side. "Not done," the alien growled, advancing again. Catherine's gun was empty. Her knife was across the room. She braced herself for hand-to-hand combat against a creature twice her strength. A burst of gunfire erupted from the doorway. Frank had returned, emptying his magazine into the alien commander. Even with multiple bullets hitting it, the creature turned to face this new threat with terrifying resolve. Catherine used the distraction to grab a broken metal table leg. She swung it like a baseball bat, connecting with the back of the alien's head. The commander dropped to its knees. "They heal fast," Frank warned, reloading. "We need to move." Catherine stood over the fallen alien. Its three eyes looked up at her, studying her face with strange intensity. "Why humans?" Catherine demanded. "Why kill us?" The commander's mouth parts moved in what might have been a smile. "Prophecy. Death Shadow species. Empire killer." Frank raised his gun to finish the alien, but Catherine held up her hand. "Wait. What prophecy?" The commander's wounds were already closing. "Ancient warning. Human adaptability. Human violence. Dangerous combination." Alarms continued blaring throughout the facility. Pierce's voice came over the intercom. 2 minutes to complete lockdown. All personnel evacuate immediately." The commander's hand moved slowly toward a device on its belt. Catherine stomped on its wrist, pinning it to the floor. "You're coming with us," she decided. 20 minutes later, they were speeding away from the facility in an unmarked van. The captured alien commander lay unconscious in the back, restrained with metal cables and sedated with drugs from the facility's medical bay. Steve's wound had been hastily bandaged, and Olivia was monitoring, their prisoner with scientific fascination. "We need a secure location," Pierce said from the driver's seat. "They found our base too easily." Catherine stared out the window at the passing landscape. "I know a place. Old hunting cabin in the Beartooth Mountains. John and I kept it as a backup." Pierce nodded. "Good. What about our guest?" It said something about a prophecy. Called humans a death shadow species. Catherine turned to Olivia. "Mean anything to you?" Olivia shook her head. "Nothing in our intercepted communications mentioned this. But it might explain why they fear us enough to send assassins." Frank cleaned his weapon methodically. "They don't seem afraid. That commander was confident." "Overconfident," Catherine corrected. "It underestimated humans. Specifically, human women. The cabin was small but defensible, with good sight lines and only one road in. They secured the alien in the basement, using water-soaked ropes as additional restraints after noticing how the creatures reacted to moisture. While Pierce established secure communications with his superiors, Catherine stood on the porch watching the mountains. 10 years of peaceful farming life felt like a distant dream now. She was fully back in her element. Threat assessment, tactical planning, combat readiness. Part of her mourned that lost peace. John had helped her find humanity after years of being the bogeyman that governments whispered about. Now he was gone and Baba Yaga had returned. Olivia joined her on the porch. "The alien is awake. It's asking for you specifically." In the basement, the commander sat against a wall, its three eyes following Catherine as she entered. "You have name?" it asked. "Catherine. Not true name. Soldiers whisper other name. Baba Yaga." Catherine crossed her arms. "That's an old story." "Stories matter." The alien's wounds had nearly healed already. "My name, Commander Zixthar, elite hunter." Not elite enough, apparently. Zixthar made a sound that might have been laughter. One battle. War continues. Catherine pulled up a chair. Tell me about this prophecy. Why does your empire fear us? Not. Empire. Hegemony. Thousands of worlds, millions of years. Sixthar shifted, testing its restraints. Long ago, Oracle species predicted empire destroyer. Species with short lives, long memory, quick to adapt, quick to kill. Sounds like lots of species could fit that description. Zixthar's middle eye blinked slowly. Prophecy specific. Species that fights among itself but unites against outsiders. Species that turns enemies' weapons against them. Species that never stops, never surrenders. Catherine thought about human history. Endless wars, but also remarkable cooperation when faced with common threats. Your people sent the first probe, Zixthar continued. Entered forbidden sector. Council watched humans long time. Decided, threat too great. So you started killing our scientists and military personnel. Remove teeth before bite comes. Catherine leaned forward. But you misjudged us. You thought we were primitive because our technology isn't as advanced. Technology, not important. Spirit important. Zixthar's eyes focused intently on her. You fight like Selverian. No fear, no mercy. I was trained to be that way. No. Born that way. All humans have potential. This why dangerous. Their conversation was interrupted by Frank rushing down the stairs. We've got movement on the perimeter. Multiple signals approaching from the North Ridge. Catherine stood quickly. How many? At least a dozen. Different from the ones we fought before. Larger biosignatures. Zixthar made that strange laughing sound again. Elite squad. Come for. Commander, come for you, Baba Yaga. Catherine checked her watch. They'd been at the cabin less than 3 hours. How did they find us so quickly? Zixthar's mouth parts moved in what might have been a smile. Selverians, best hunters in galaxy. Smell trail. Follow blood. Catherine turned to Frank. Get everyone to the vehicles. We need to move now. What about him? Frank nodded toward Zixthar. Catherine considered their prisoner. If they took the alien, they would continue to be hunted. If they left it behind, its squad would rescue it and continue the hunt anyway. Bring him. He's our only source of information. As they prepared to evacuate, Catherine felt a strange calm settling over her. The woman who had tended a farm and planted flowers was fully gone now. In her place stood the hunter, the legend, the nightmare that governments once deployed against their worst enemies. Baba Yaga was fully awake now, and she was about to teach alien assassins why humans were worth fearing. They barely made it to the vehicles before the first energy beams sliced through the cabin's roof. Catherine pushed Olivia into the back of the first SUV, while Frank secured their alien prisoner in the second vehicle with Steve and Pierce. Split. Up, Catherine ordered. They'll follow the commander. We'll create a diversion. Pierce nodded grimly from the driver's seat of the second SUV. Rendezvous at the old Cold War bunker outside Livingston. You remember the access codes? Alpha Echo November 731, Catherine recited. Go now. As Pierce's vehicle sped down the mountain road, Catherine climbed into the driver's seat of her SUV. Olivia clutched a laptop containing their research data. You know how to use a gun? Catherine asked, handing Olivia a pistol. I had basic training when I joined the program, Olivia replied nervously. Good enough. Catherine drove in the opposite direction from Pierce, accelerating hard as shapes moved through the trees. The elite Selverian squad moved with incredible speed, flowing over the rough terrain like water. They're not following Pierce, Olivia observed, looking back. They're coming after us. Catherine gripped the steering wheel tighter. They're hunting me. Zixthar must have told them about Baba Yaga. An alien figure leaped from the forest, landing on the hood of their vehicle. Its triangular eyes stared through the windshield as clawed hands dug into the metal. Catherine swerved, hard, trying to dislodge it. The creature held firm, punching through the glass with one powerful arm. Olivia screamed and fired 3 shots. The bullets struck the alien but barely slowed it down. Catherine grabbed a hunting knife from her belt and stabbed upward through the broken windshield, catching the creature in one of its eyes. The alien shrieked and fell away. Catherine accelerated down the winding mountain road, the SUV's tires squealing on each turn. "Why are they focusing on you instead of their commander?" Olivia asked, reloading the pistol with shaking hands. Zixthar said, "I fight like them. No fear, no mercy." Catherine checked the rearview mirror. More shapes were moving through the trees, paralleling their course. "They see me as the bigger threat." Olivia looked at her with new understanding. "The stories about you, they're all true, aren't they?" Catherine didn't answer. Instead, she turned off the main road onto a narrow dirt track that cut through dense forest. "They can track us by smell," she said. "We need to mask our trail." They drove until they reached a fast-moving river. Catherine stopped the SUV and grabbed a backpack of supplies. "We continue on foot." Through the water, they waded into the cold mountain stream, moving downstream as quickly as the current allowed. Catherine kept them in the deepest part, where the rushing water would wash away any scent. After 20 minutes, they emerged on the opposite bank and continued through the forest. Catherine moved with quiet efficiency, guiding Olivia around obstacles and watching for signs of pursuit. "How did you learn to move like this?" Olivia whispered. "Years of practice," Catherine replied. "Before I became Baba Yaga, I grew up hunting, in woods like these." They stopped at the edge of a small town. Night had fallen and streetlights illuminated quiet roads and closed shops. "We need transportation," Catherine decided, "and a way to contact Pierce." They found a gas station with an attached garage. While Olivia distracted the lone attendant with questions about local accommodations, Catherine quietly borrowed a pickup truck parked behind the building. She left cash under the garage door, enough to cover the truck's value plus extra. On the road again, Catherine used a secure phone to contact Pierce. His voice came through, tense but controlled. "We made it to the bunker. Our guest is secure, but not cooperative. Where are you?" "Heading your way. We had company. The elite squad is hunting me specifically." There was a pause on the line. "That's concerning. Why you?" "I'll explain when we arrive." "Is the bunker secure?" "As much as anything can be. It was designed to withstand nuclear war, not alien invasion." 2 hours later, they descended in an ancient elevator into the cold. War bunker. Built in the 1960s, it had been maintained as a black site for government operations. Thick concrete walls, independent water and power systems, and enough supplies to last months made it an ideal fortress. Frank met them at the elevator. "We've got problems. The commander's talking, but what he's saying doesn't make sense." In the main control room, Pierce and Steve were reviewing satellite imagery showing unusual energy signatures in Earth's orbit. "Their mothership?" Catherine asked. Pierce nodded. "We think so, and it's not alone anymore. 3 more vessels arrived 6 hours ago." Steve pointed to data scrolling across a screen. "We've intercepted communications. They're mobilizing for something big." In the holding cell, Zixthar sat calmly on a metal bench. When Catherine entered, the alien commander looked up with what seemed like satisfaction. "Baba Yaga returns. You escape elite hunters." "They weren't that elite," Catherine replied. "What's happening in orbit? Why are more ships arriving?" Zixthar's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "Council fears you now. 1 human female defeats many hunters. Proves prophecy correct. What are they planning?" "Accelerate timeline. Full invasion now, not later." Catherine felt cold dread settle in her stomach. "Because of me?" "Because of what you represent." Zixthar leaned forward. "Hegemony rules thousands of worlds, many species, none fight like humans, none adapt like humans. We're just defending ourselves. No. You hunt. Like us. But with something else." The alien touched its chest. "Fire inside. Hegemony Council watches recordings of you fighting. They fear now." Catherine returned to the control room, where the team waited anxiously. "We have days, maybe hours," she announced. They're planning a full-scale invasion because they're afraid of what humans might become. Because of what you did? Olivia asked. Because I showed them what any human is capable of when pushed. Catherine studied the satellite imagery. They believe a prophecy, that humans will destroy their empire, and now they're convinced it's true. Pierce ran a hand through his gray hair. We're not ready for an alien invasion. Even if we warned world governments now, there's no way to prepare. Catherine stared at the orbital images, her mind racing through options. In her decades as an operative, she had faced impossible odds before. Governments, terrorist cells, criminal organizations, all had underestimated her, and all had fallen. But this was different. This was an advanced alien civilization with technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. We need to hit them where they don't expect, she said finally. Not here on Earth, but up there. She pointed to the largest energy signature, the command ship. Frank looked at her like she was insane. You want to attack an alien spaceship? With what? Catherine turned to Steve. You've been studying their technology. The devices we recovered from the assassins, could they be reverse engineered? Steve adjusted his glasses. Maybe. Some of it seems to work on principles we can understand. Their shuttlecraft use a propulsion system that's not completely beyond our comprehension. And their weapons? The energy weapons operate on a frequency we can at least measure, possibly disrupt. Catherine nodded. Then we have work to do. Olivia, I need everything you've decoded about their language and communication systems. Frank, inventory our weapons and identify what works best against their biology. Pierce watched her with a mixture of admiration and concern. You're planning something insane, aren't you? Catherine smiled, and for a moment, Pierce saw the legendary Baba Yaga that had haunted the nightmares of enemies across the globe. They came to hunt us, she said quietly. Now it's our turn to hunt them. 3 days later, Catherine stood inside an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Helena. Before her sat a small alien craft, recovered from a hidden landing site in the mountains. Steve and his hastily assembled team of engineers had been working around the clock to understand its systems. It's designed for 2 pilots, Steve explained, pointing to the strange seats inside the craft. We've figured out basic flight controls and life support, but the weapons systems are still a mystery. Catherine ran her hand along the smooth metal exterior. Can it reach their command ship? Yes. Their main vessel is in high Earth orbit. This shuttle can get there in approximately 20 minutes. Pierce entered the warehouse, his face grim. World governments are reporting strange phenomena worldwide. Objects falling from orbit, unusual weather patterns, electronic disruptions. The invasion is beginning. Catherine nodded. It was time. What about our guest? Zixthar has been surprisingly helpful since you suggested our plan. Almost like he's enjoying the idea of humans fighting back. In a secured room, the alien commander waited with Frank standing guard. When Catherine entered, Zixthar's 3 eyes focused on her with an intensity that was almost respectful. Shuttle ready? The alien asked. Yes. Now tell me how to enter your command ship without being destroyed immediately. Zixthar made a series of clicks and whistles. Approach vector must be precise. Signal codes change every rotation. He pointed to a device Steve had modified from alien technology. This transmitter. Correct frequency. I provide codes. Why are you helping us? Frank asked suspiciously. Zixthar's mouth parts moved in what might have been a smile. Prophecy says death shadow species brings end to empire. Not say how. Maybe battle. Maybe on change. Catherine studied the alien commander. You don't fully support your mission, do you? Selverians respect strength, respect worthy opponents. Zixthar pointed at Catherine. You proved humans dangerous, worthy. Some in hegemony believe prophecy misunderstood. Not destruction, but transformation. 2 hours later, final preparations were complete. Catherine and Olivia would pilot the shuttle while Steve monitored communications from the bunker. Frank would remain with Pierce and their alien prisoner, ready to coordinate with any government forces if the mission failed. Catherine changed into a close-fitting black suit, adapted from materials found in the alien craft. She armed herself with modified weapons designed to disrupt Silverian biology, based on what they had learned from their encounters. Olivia approached, similarly dressed. The translation program is loaded. I can interpret any communications we intercept and broadcast messages in their language. Pierce pulled Catherine aside before she boarded the shuttle. This is a one-way mission. You know that, right? Catherine checked her weapons one last time. Most of my missions were supposed to be one way. I'm still here. Lisa. Pierce used her old name, his voice softening. You've done enough. You deserve peace. I had peace. Catherine thought of John, of their farm, of the simple life they had built. They took it from me. The shuttle rose silently into the night sky, accelerating with a speed that pressed Catherine and Olivia back into their seats. Earth quickly shrank below them, the curvature of the planet becoming visible as they ascended. Olivia monitored the communication system, making small adjustments based on Zixthar's instructions. Approaching designated coordinates, transmitting, access codes now. The massive command ship came into view, a dark, angular structure that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Smaller vessels moved around it like insects attending a queen. They're receiving our transmission, Olivia reported. Docking protocols engaged. Catherine checked her weapons. Remember the plan. Once inside, we head directly for their communication center. We broadcast the message to the entire hegemony fleet, then make for the engine core. The shuttle docked with surprising ease, connecting to the larger ship with a soft metallic clank. Catherine moved to the exit hatch, prepared for immediate resistance. None came. The docking bay was empty except for rows of similar shuttles. Warning. Lights flashed silently, but no alarm sounded. They're not expecting anyone to board them, Olivia whispered, consulting the ship schematic Zixthar had provided. Command center is 3 levels up. They moved through the alien vessel, encountering surprisingly little resistance. The few Silverians they met were quickly neutralized with the modified weapons. Catherine noticed the ship seemed to be operating with minimal crew. They're focused on the invasion, she realized. Most of their forces must be deploying to Earth. The command center doors were sealed, but Steve had prepared for this. Catherine attached a device to the control panel, and the doors slid open. Inside, a dozen Silverians turned in surprise. At the center stood a larger alien with elaborate markings, clearly a high-ranking officer. Humans, it hissed in accented English. Impossible, Catherine raised her weapon. Clearly not. What followed was a blur of motion and violence. The Silverians were fast, but Catherine was ready. She moved with deadly precision, each shot finding a vulnerable joint or eye cluster. Olivia provided covering fire, more accurate than her training would suggest. In minutes, the command center was secured. The high-ranking officer lay wounded but alive, staring at Catherine with a mixture of fear and fascination. You, it said, the one they call Baba Yaga. Catherine ignored it, turning to Olivia. Set up the broadcast, all channels, all frequencies. Olivia worked quickly at the alien console, adapting their technology. Ready. It will transmit to the entire fleet. Catherine stepped in front of the recording device. Her message was simple, delivered in the Silverian language that Olivia had taught her. I am Catherine Hayes. You know me as Baba Yaga. You came to my world to hunt us because of a prophecy. You believed humans would bring destruction to your empire. You were right to fear us. She paused, letting her words sink in. I am only one human. I have killed your assassins. I have captured your commander. I have boarded your command ship, and I am here to offer you a choice. Catherine gestured to the wounded officer. Continue your invasion, and every human will become like me. We will adapt. We will learn your technologies. We will fight until no one remains. Or, you can leave. Return to your worlds. Approach Earth as equals, not conquerors. She leaned closer to the recording device. The prophecy doesn't have to mean destruction. It could mean change. Choose wisely. The broadcast ended. Catherine turned to the alien officer. Your ships need to withdraw now or we destroy this vessel's engine core. Hours later, Catherine stood at the window of the bunker control room, watching distant lights in the sky as the alien fleet broke orbit and moved away from Earth. Pierce handed her a cup of coffee. They're leaving. All of them. For now, Catherine said. How did you know they would retreat? Catherine thought about Zixthar, who had chosen to remain on Earth as an emissary. They're not so different from us. They respect strength but also understand negotiation. Olivia joined them, excitement in her eyes. Zixthar says the Hegemony Council has requested formal communication channels with Earth. They want to talk. Catherine nodded, a small smile forming. Good. Talking is better than hunting. Later that evening, Catherine drove alone back to her farm in Montana. The house stood quiet and empty, but somehow it didn't feel like home anymore. She walked to John's grave, beneath the old oak tree. She placed fresh flowers and sat beside the simple marker. It's over for now, she told him. They're gone, but they'll be back someday. Not as conquerors, hopefully, but we'll see. Catherine looked up at the stars, knowing that across the galaxy stories were being told about Earth, about humans, about a woman they called Baba Yaga, who showed an empire why humans were worth fearing, and perhaps worth knowing. In her pocket, a small alien communication device hummed softly. A direct line to Zixthar, and through him, to the stars. A promise that if they ever returned with ill intent, Baba Yaga would be waiting. But for tonight, Catherine Hayes sat quietly by her husband's grave, at peace with both the woman she had been and the legend she had become.